All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the other side of the coin and welcome back to yet another live stream. Do you know what? It's been a while. It's been a while since I've done a live stream, and it's seriously due to like the amount of work that I've been doing lately for my office, basically, office work and family time as well. So it's been very difficult to make the time and do live streams, but we're going to try our best. We're going to try our best to be regular with the live streams again, just like before, because yeah, it's a great way to mingle with you guys. It's a great way to talk about a lot of pressing topics within the Chelsea fan base. So yeah, it's good. It's good to be back. And yeah, big up Miz. Unusual time for a live. Yeah, it is. It is unusual, but this is what we got to do. Sometimes we have to be unusual. Sometimes we have to be unusual. We can't always be. We can't always be on the right time. Whenever we find time, we gotta make an opportunity and talk about Chelsea and mingle. I've missed it. I absolutely have missed doing these live streams. Big up, Ruth. Good to see you. James, big up to an early evening date with Miz and me with that red wine. Get yourself that red wine, my man. No, it's. I thought it's a good time. I've got a bit of time on my hand, and we can talk about some interesting topics, as I said, some debates that's floating around in the fan base. Mudryk versus Sancho, Nkunku versus Nicholas Jackson, Madueke versus Neto. We need to talk as a community and come to a general consensus, basically. Thomas, big up to you. Hello, Ms. Robbie. What's the time in Australia right now? It is 6:03 a.m. I'm well and rested. This is why I'm here. And yes, it is the weekend. That's why it's even more interesting for me. Big up to Shubra. Weekend mood on, Miz. Yes, absolutely. Saturday morning, weekend mood. 100%. Liam, big up to you. Prem talk. Felix versus Palmer. Actually, you know what? Yeah. Felix versus Palmer and the midfield as well. Caicedo, Lavia, Enzo. What about that? So there's a lot, and in defense too. There's a lot to talk about. But that's for another day. Today, I really want to talk about. Oh, Alhambra's in the building. Let's get him on. Alhambra, my brother, how you doing?
Big up, Miz. Big up the chat. Long time no speak. How you doing?
Yeah, bro. It's been a while since we last spoke. That's why I thought I'll reach out to the gang and see if any of you guys are free so we can have a conversation. Always love having a conversation with you guys, man. And it's good that you're here. Look, I know you're on limited time, so let's get straight into it. I don't want to keep you here and spend half the time doing the introduction and whatnot. Alhambra, there's three particular debates that I really want to talk about. There's so many debates that can be had, but we don't have all the time in the world right now. We can utilize that for another day. We'll start things off with the latest flavor in town at the moment, off the back of very good performance from Mudryk against Panathinaikos. Mudryk versus Sancho, Alhambra. Where do you stand on this matter? We've got the match coming up against Newcastle very, very soon. The debate on that left side is predominantly Mudryk versus Sancho. Some people saying you can also throw in Neto there as well. He could potentially start on the left. Where are you at the moment in the whole left-sided conversation with Mudryk, Sancho, or whoever else?
I think to just take it to a little bit of just a slightly higher level, which is the points that were made in the That's Life podcast. And he's absolutely right. Which is, do we have wingers that have this instinct to want to, get a goal, right? And I think for the last 7 years, we've been starved of wingers that really want to like get into the box, attack the far post, be in and around the penalty area. I mean, you know, Pedro and Willian probably were the last two wingers that I would say that were goal threat wingers that we had. And
100.
And I think since then, you know, we've had wingers that generally just haven't really cut it in terms of goal threat, you know, as much as, you know, like Habibi Ziyech, for example, right? You know, and others along the way, right? That we just haven't really been able to like get them to really have that instinct. Now, Sancho is very early days.
Yeah.
But I think Sancho is probably a winger that needs to combine to create a goal opportunity, but he doesn't strike me as a winger that will be in and around the penalty box or have the instinct to run into the area. You know, if for example the threat is coming from the other flank, you know, he is fantastic on the ball. He's amazing, you know, in terms of combination play. And I'm sure that, you know, if he can combine with whoever it is that supports him on the flank, or even with, for example, Palmer, you know, he could create himself an opportunity. But I don't think Maresca is going to be 100% happy with just that side of his game. Now,
he's got to score goals. I mean, you're not just there to link up. You have to have a goal instinct in you.
Now, on the other hand, Mudryk seems to be having kind of a little bit of what I think, when you look at the way he's developing, might end up being the complete opposite of the Sancho, which is because his decision making isn't as great. I don't see him as ever becoming that kind of like combination winger that Sancho is. And so where I think Maresca is developing his game is in getting into that far end, that far post, right? And we could see them Panathinaikos. Now again, you know, like the quality isn't exactly Premier League defending quality,
right?
But credit where credit's due. I think, you know, a year ago you probably wouldn't see, you know, Mudryk making that run. So so the issue that I think we're going to have is, can we have a complete winger that can do both sides of this game? The winger that can sniff out the opportunity for the loose ball, be in that area, and also combine. And I think the reason why we're having a Mudryk-Sancho debate is because none of those present a complete profile of the winger that we're really looking for to really fit into that. And it goes back to what was said, and I think he's absolutely nailed it. We don't have right now, I think, wingers that can do it all, right? That can be a goal scorer or goal threat in all situations, whether the threat's coming from their end or from the opposite wing, you know, so that defenders have multiple things to think about. So as it stands right now, I think the fairest thing to do when it comes to this debate is go on form. Because in terms of profiles, I think you're going to be missing something regardless of who you play.
Yeah. Alhambra, let's break this down a little bit, right? Let's have a look at Mudryk first. Mudryk, if you remember, against Nottingham Forest, came off the bench, and there was that moment where Nottingham Forest almost scored, and then he ended up getting the ball somehow as we were sort of clearing out from the back, and then he made that amazing barnstorming run on the left side, whipped in that cross with his left foot, and Nkunku should have scored. Point blank range, Nkunku hit the header right on the goalkeeper, right? Then Mudryk goes on the international break and he scores a really good goal for Ukraine in the Nations League. Don't know if Ukraine ended up winning that game, but he scores a really good goal outside of the box. Then he comes and he wasn't selected at all. He wasn't even in the squad against Liverpool was not even thought of in the international break. A lot of people were saying, should he even start? And I was like, the whole start conversation is a bit crazy because Sancho at that time, didn't do anything wrong, but we'll get to Sancho. And he wasn't even in the squad. And then Mudryk comes in against Panathinaikos. And as you said, let's be mindful, it is Panathinaikos. But nonetheless, that's not Mudryk's fault. Mudryk can only do what he can do with the opposition in front of him. And it's happened to be Panathinaikos. And he does really well where he puts in a really good assist for João Felix, combines with João Felix nicely initially from the long ball, and then threads a ball through brilliantly for him. And scores a really good header off the back of Pedro Neto in the second half where he actually attacks the box, scores the header, and runs directly to Enzo Maresca to give him a high five. Later on, we heard what Mudryk said post-match, that I went up to him because he's told me to attack the far post. He wants me to attack the far post as a winger. So we just had this conversation, Alhambra, where we were saying that we don't really have a winger. And as I said, we kind of established that in That's Life podcast as well, that we don't have a winger that's able to score, link up, do it all. But are we slowly, and I know it's early days and I don't want to count my chickens as yet, are we slowly starting to see from Mudryk, and as Maresca said post-match interview, he is a bit slow in development than others, but he's slowly getting there. Are we starting to see perhaps Mudryk learning both sides of this game, assist and scoring goals and making the right decisions, would you say, or still early days?
I think the assists, it depends on the game itself. So that assist or near assist that Mudryk gave to Nkunku is classic Mudryk. And in fact, actually, if you see Mudryk playing at Shakhtar Donetsk in the Champions League, a lot of either his goals or assists come in transition, and as you would expect, right? If you're Shakhtar Donetsk, you're going to be defending mid-low block, and you're going to have space in behind, and that transition for the cross is absolutely was kind of a textbook Mudryk. In fact, if you look at either even last season, if you remember the Arsenal game, I believe it was the debate on whether it was a cross or a shot. Where let's be honest, it was a cross, right?
It was a cross,
but again, these are actions that Mudryk has kind of shown us that I mean, like this is like that was a game that suited Mudryk to the T. I think what's going to be increasingly difficult, especially for Mudryk, as kind of like teams start to figure out, actually we can't play a pressing game against Chelsea, right? We not with the kind of midfield. If Liverpool struggle to play their pressing game, against Chelsea, there's like you'll see it on Sunday against Newcastle. There's no way anymore like that they're going to come out, and the respect has come back, right? It's been multiple games now that Chelsea have shown that if
people know
high,
we can attack, we can score, we can hurt.
Like pretty much every team that has been cut apart this season, like whether it's West Ham, Brighton, whether that's
even Nottingham Forest with their tight defense. Do you know what I mean? We created chances.
Yeah. I mean, like Wolves, right? I mean, the especially in the second half. I mean, these are teams that have they bought into this media narrative, and that's not that's not to its value. Even managers fall into this narrative, right? Like, we can press Chelsea. Let's see if they've got it. But now that's not going to happen. I think what's going to then, to bring it back to Mudryk, I think what will eventually happen is Mudryk's going to have to provide assists in much tighter games without that space in behind. And,
right.
and like, even if you look at the goal against Panathinaikos, again, the assist provided was in transition, right? It was a long ball by
It was a long
Enzo,
ball.
headed down from Felix, space, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think those kind of transitions in the Premier League are going to get less and less.
Yeah.
And so
teams are going to be tighter against us. Teams will stay a little bit deeper now.
Right. So the question then is, like, is Mudryk going to provide those assists with that kind of restricted minimal space? And
good point. Good point.
I jury's out. I don't see it. Now, could he then end up being kind of more like, quote unquote, the Sterling player in a Pep system?
Attack the box, far post.
Attack the box, far post. Doesn't give much in terms of kind of like, the assist side. I remember more Sterling in that system being attack the box, right? And for good reason, we found out why he's not the player to be providing assist and playmaking, because that's not him. For some reason, people have fallen into this idea that Sterling is this dribbler that can get past. He's not. He's a player that over time has kind of been molded by Pep. Get into the box, use your pace, attack the box. He can certainly be that kind of player. But if you were looking at a low block team that has to unlock defenses, I'm not so sure that Mudryk's going to be that player. Now, if Sancho, I think the issue with Sancho is that he is a player that I think needs to have combinations around him in order for him to actually create an opening for himself, or he will look to assist. He needs to be braver on the ball, drive in, and try to see if he can make something for himself. He needs to kind of steal a little bit of that kind of greediness from Noni, and start to be a bit braver on the ball. Make the mistake on the ball. It's fine, right? It's okay. But he also has to be the player that can sniff out, a potential goal threat, get into the far post. So I would say, based on the two players and the way that I think games will end up being for Chelsea over time, there is more opportunity and a higher ceiling for Sancho, because if Maresca can coach those runs into Mudryk, I think
he can definitely do that.
See it into Sancho,
100%.
100%. And so I think in reality, if it is true to say it's fairer to pick between the two right now on form, but in terms of the ability to create that kind of complete winger that can do it all, I think Sancho has it. I really do.
And if you recall that, obviously Sancho provided a fantastic assist in his debut coming off the bench for Nkunku against Bournemouth. Tight defense there as well. I don't want to count too much on the West Ham one where he literally just passed it from halfway line.
That's not an assist.
But that's not an assist. But the one against Brighton, if you remember, he was devastating on the left side. He put a really good ball for, I think it might have been Cole Palmer's third goal, maybe. Slipped in a ball.
The fourth goal,
slipped in a beautiful ball. Cole Palmer diagonal run with his left foot and then hit it across the goalkeeper. This is something that Sancho has. You're right. Like this upcoming match that we've got against Newcastle, I do feel Newcastle's probably going to be a little bit tighter. I don't think they're going to have this expansive style of football. They want to stay tight and see if they can counter and nick a goal. They don't want to be in a back and forth with us where we're probably going to rip them open. In matches like this, Sancho you can see when he has the ball and there's several players in front of him, opposition defenders, he picks out runners, he picks out our players where they're making the movement, and it's very subtle. Like even as a viewer, when we were watching the game, you're like, where's he going to go? Where's he going to go? Oh, what a pass. Like you go, where did that come from? Like we didn't see that happening, right? Sancho has that. And I think with Mudryk, the verdict is still out there in terms of, can he make that split-second decisions? When it's a tight defense, does he have that technical quality? Does he still have that touch? The first touch. Do you know what I mean? So it is. But you're right. Sancho is great that he does all of that nifty little things, and he's got the vision. But he has to get into the box as well whenever he gets the opportunity to score goals. There is a player that can score goals there. We've seen that in Dortmund, right?
Yeah, look, if I were to, I mean, who knows, right? But if I had to pick between which of those profiles you can then coach up to become that complete winger with the goal scoring threat, I'd rather start with Sancho. I mean, look, that ball he played into Palmer for that fourth, it may look simple, but I mean, it was a phenomenal ball. I mean, how many players in the Premier League do you see, doing that? I mean, it was it was kind of almost telepathic, like the weight of the pass was so good that Palmer didn't even have to take a touch.
Yeah, and first touch shot. Do you know what I mean?
What's amazing is he's so close to the goal as well. So that ball had to be perfect. Right? It has to be perfect. And how many times do you see players overhit that pass? And then the player has to control and the ball, and suddenly now the chance is gone. Right? You're gonna have to cut it across the box. You might have to dribble. You might win a penalty off of that. But it's in order for that chance to be a goal scoring opportunity, that ball had to be perfect. So I think he's got that in bags. But where we saw, for example, in the Liverpool game, in the Liverpool game, because they cut Palmer off, the issue then is, how do you become a goal scoring threat? How do you create a chance without necessarily having to pick a runner?
Yeah, like when your partner in crime is well marked, and that's going to happen moving forward. People are going to realize that Palmer is a threat. Let's mark him. What are you going to do, brother, when your partner is locked up?
But I'll tell you. Look, so the Liverpool game for me emphasized the wingers to me, because I was hugely impressed in the way we got the ball to the wingers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? We're talking about 2-3 passes, boom, you've now got the wingers. All it took in that game, Miz, I'll tell you, all it would take in that game to change the whole tide of that game and to unlock Palmer is for one of those wingers to have had a near miss, hit the post, or maybe even scored a goal.
Yeah.
If one of those wingers gives, whether it's Robertson, Trent, a problem and forces the goalkeeper to make a save, suddenly now the manager is having second thoughts, right? Because the game isn't now just about Palmer.
Yeah.
And then the game will open up, and then Palmer gets space.
Yes.
If that had happened before the penalty, we've got a totally different game. And that's the margins we're talking about here in getting those wingers to be a goal threat versus being a support act. And I would say that what both wingers needed to do was be in the box. So, Madueke shouldn't necessarily just be looking out for Palmer. He could be looking for Sancho in the box.
And that inverted cross, maybe cut in on your left and then look for Sancho far post.
The issue, I think, in that game as well, and this is probably add another element to this, right? Which I think maybe, I don't know if it was necessarily talked about as much in the That's Life podcast, is I don't think both of those players handled as well balancing the defensive and attacking side of the game.
Yeah, I think that's a good point.
I think what happened in that game was Sancho, and I think this is probably one of the reasons why he was brought off. I think he was overwhelmed by his defensive duties. I think he focused a lot more on that and didn't provide much going forward. So off the ball, you could clearly see that actually he was he was actually providing good covering runs for Trent. But if you're Maresca, you don't want Trent to be imposing on Sancho and making those runs, and for Sancho to be tracking back. You want the other side of this to be the case. You want to make sure that Sancho is imposing his game on Trent.
Yeah. So that Trent can't keep coming out. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
But instead what happened was it's important for him to track his runs. But I think what Trent did kind of well was he outfoxed him by making those brave runs and pulling Sancho, all the way. Like there were points in time where Sancho was in, like running towards like the 8 and the 6 area following Trent.
Yeah.
When Liverpool had the ball, again, important for him to do that. But if Sancho had won his battles against Trent wouldn't be making those runs. Because they would be thinking about the turnover and the transition, right? If Sancho had given Trent something to think about, you wouldn't be seeing that, and vice versa. By the way, on the other side for Noni,
Madueke.
For whenever Robertson's making his run. So that's another side to the game here. Is like, do you have somebody that doesn't have to be overwhelmed by the defensive side because they haven't imposed their game on?
I think this is why when Neto came on, he looked a lot more imposing against Liverpool, where he was taking them on and winning the duels as well.
And Trent didn't make those runs as much.
Yeah.
If you notice. But on the other hand, there was that one moment that he lost him, and that's where the goal came from.
Yeah.
The one moment where Trent made the run and Neto didn't follow him. That's where you got, he was late to close down the ball onto Trent, went out to Salah, then there was the goal, right? Neto was there. That ball doesn't get played.
Yes, true.
Right.
True.
So even with Neto, so I think Maresca's looking for a lot of things, right? But I think these wingers are vitally important to the system. This system, this is why I have to, like, I've done a 180 about turn, right? Like, and I've been that way since the Wolves game.
Yeah.
But this system won't ever like get to its full potential if we don't have complete wingers that are hugely intelligent when it comes to where they are in the game, where they have to run, the defensive runs they have to make, attacking. Like, this is a system that lives and dies by the quality of the wingers. And and because of that, I would say that there is a significant amount of coaching for all of these wingers
100%.
before we can really truly see what the whole system looks like. Because at the end of the day, all of this system revolves around isolating the wingers. I mean, it's the way in which these runs are made, the way in which left backs invert or don't invert, is kind of neither here nor there. It's about isolating the wingers.
100%.
And when you isolate the wingers, then it's a case of, okay, what do you have? What have you got? Where's your support?
What can you do to devastate, the opposition in order to then create a clear-cut opportunity for us? For me, you know what? That's such a well-constructed, theory that you just mentioned there. And I feel like the closest player that comes to that in our team that I think is the most complete winger, as you've just mentioned, is probably Pedro Neto. I think Pedro Neto is someone who's quite intelligent when it comes to off the ball work rate, exactly what he needs to do off the ball, where he needs to be, and on the ball. He knows when to link up. He knows when to stay as far as possible to ensure he can isolate a defender. He knows the exact type of crosses that needs to go in, or does there need to be a cross as well? Is there meant to be a pass now? We've seen that against Wolves where he squares the ball for João Felix. We've now seen it against Panathinaikos, where he puts in the cross for Mudryk. He, for me, and we've seen him score goals as well, Pedro Neto, this season so far. He seems to me someone who's probably the most perfect balance. But I think the biggest issue with Pedro Neto is I think he's incapable of playing 2 games a week. That's probably the biggest issue with him.
Yeah, I don't think you can play Neto 2 games a week. I think that Neto doesn't have the same finesse as Sancho. He doesn't have the same, I guess, speed as Mudryk, even though he's very quick. But what he does have is insane work rate, tremendous delivery into the box.
Yeah.
He is intelligent with his runs. And he is definitely, just when you look at him, he's just dynamic, right? You can tell that he's going to
physically he matches up as well, Alhambra. Like physically he matches up.
Physically, he definitely matches up. And I think that in terms of physicality, I would say, him alongside Noni definitely, are there. So I would say, he definitely is, in my view, the closest to, at least on one side of the pitch, being the most faithful representation for what like Maresca is looking for, in his system. Question is, can you find a Neto or create a Neto on the other side? And that I think is going to be tough. Even if we think about, for example, wingers coming in next season, like Esteval. Look, it's going to be no picnic for him, right?
No way.
Because Esteval has a significant amount of talent on the ball. Remains to be seen if he has the physicality, or the defensive acumen. I don't see, like, just to, I guess, for the rest of the fan base are looking at, the Brasileiro, like highlights, etc. That ain't going to happen in the Premier League, and so, it seems that
he will get a reality check, Alhambra. He will definitely get a reality check.
Like for me, it would be amazing on that left-hand side, and I've always would love to have this, even though it would never probably happen, would be like a Kvaratskhelia.
Oh, wow. Yes.
Kvaratskhelia on that side, for me, is a Maresca winger.
Yeah, you're right.
And this guy's got it. This guy's got it all. He's physicality, goal threat, ability to combine, but also pick out amazing crosses. But
defensively is good.
I mean, just look at what he did at Anfield in the Champions League against Trent. Granted, Trent was at a different point maybe in his career where maybe defensively he wasn't as strong as he is now.
Yeah.
He got cooked, man. He cooked that team. Now, again, different system, different style, different manager. But this guy was unfazed by Anfield. Absolutely unfazed. Now, there's a player in Napoli that I would go for. It would be him. You get him in, put a swap in for Mudryk, or we cook. Kvaratskhelia, Neto. I mean, I would say that
it would be sensational. It would be sensational. Yeah, he's that workhorse. You're right.
But look, we're just dreaming here, right? That's not going to happen. He's signed. I think he's signed a new contract. Or there was some issue. He actually had some issues with Napoli. I don't know if they resolved it.
Yeah, I think that boat's probably gone now.
It's gone.
Yeah,
but
I don't think we're going to be.
Is there another player of that type that exists? I don't know. But I would certainly say if they can't be coached, and I would say, if by the second half of the season we're not seeing development in these players, I would honestly say that some of them might be moved on.
Well, before we go into the next topic of Nkunku and Jackson and what you just mentioned, some of them might be moved on. Where is let's close this chapter for a second. Where is the future of Mudryk for the time being? I mean, you've talked about some of them might be moved on. Is he one of those contenders that might possibly be moved on?
Yeah, I think that at this point in time, I think in as much as he's developed, and yes, that's great. But let's be honest, it's one game.
Yeah.
This is you've got to put it in context. The pressure on Maresca goes up next season, right?
Yeah.
And the kind of the line of I want to improve the players. Yes, I think is a constant, but at the same time, if you haven't improved, in a year to really kind of integrate with the system and understand how it works, you got to cut your losses, right? And I think that over time, I think, in as much as I still don't like these sporting directors, I think what the strategy Chelsea will recruit will be a little bit like the Man City style, which is if you ain't going to fit the system, we're going to move you on.
And we're going to swiftly move you on. And maybe we start looking at the academy, because Man City have focused a lot recently on bringing some talented players from academy. I mean, if Oscar Bob wasn't injured, the horrific injury that he had, I think he would have been well and truly integrated into the team this season.
Yeah. So, but we're seeing that in the Conference League. I mean, look, Tyreek George looks good.
Bro, I think there's a player there, bro. I think with
really
Tyreek George, if we can turn him into the player that we just talked about early, maybe you can coach him.
I think he's got the raw instincts to coach, right? He's a player that wants to get into the box. I'll forgive him for being a little bit greedy, because I think he desperately wanted to score a goal. And be able to say that he scored his first senior goal.
I don't mind that, though. I don't mind that.
I don't mind that. And by the way, I don't mind that for Noni either, by the way. I think that he's definitely got the ball control, the aggressiveness to get into the box. What was missing in his performance, at least, was a little bit more kind of looking at his options. But we saw that he had, there was a few near assists in that game on his cameo. So it's not entirely that he didn't look up. But I think there's definitely a player there, absolutely. And
100%.
I would say that that the Conference League is potentially like a pathway to him to really get acclimatized to the way that Maresca wants to play. The problem is, though, and this is what we hope, at least over time, the European nights will be less about blooding in talent and more about winning games, right?
Correct.
If we get into Champions League, or God forbid, even the Europa League, right? We're not going to be able to do that. So, so this is his opportunity, and he's got to take it if he wants to be that player. Otherwise, I think it's going to be tougher for the academy players to really be able to integrate and be coached up to being a proper, Maresca type winger. So I think they're going to go back into the market. But those, I genuinely think that kind of winger exists, and it will probably be as I said before, Footy McFootface in the Belgian league or something, right? That kind, some
Footy
unknown,
McFootface,
some player that we've never heard of, right? If that player's got the raw ability of that instinct, I wouldn't mind if those kind of players are brought in, and then you get rid of the players that just simply aren't getting it. And that's what it comes down to. They don't get it, and that applies to every single. I think no winger's spot is safe either in the first 11 or in the whole club.
No, and do you know what? Maresca has said it time and time out in the press conference, and we're going to lead into the Nkunku and Jackson conversation now. He said that I need players to work off the ball. It's so important. Yes, on the ball, you got to be good, and that's a given. But off the ball, you can't just be lazing around. You need to work your backsides off. And yeah, man, our wingers, as much as they need to be good on the ball and also be very good inside the box, but when it comes to defending, you better be winning your duels. If we're not winning duels, I'm telling you, we're not going to win matches. That's simple as that. Winning duels and winning the second ball. It's so important. Alhambra, let's switch to Nkunku versus Jackson. Big conversations happening here. I've said this from the start of the season, that Nkunku, no problems, if for the time being he's starting in the Conference League, but I'm sure as time goes on, he's probably not going to be okay with this. He's probably want to start in the Premier League in the highest level of competition, but it's very difficult to dislodge Jackson right now. Even though Jackson, look, I personally don't think Jackson can lead us to a Premier League title. At the end of the day, you need a striker that's going to be able to lead us, along with other partners that we have within our team, along with other top players in the likes of Cole Palmer and so on and so forth. You need a striker that's going to be able to deliver quite a lot of goals. And I don't know if, and not just quite a lot of goals, like meaningful goals, winning goals, basically. And I don't know if Jackson's that guy. I'm not saying Jackson needs to be sold or anything like that. Not at all. I think Jackson can play off another striker or perhaps come off the bench and give something different and start those odd games. But the one thing between this debate right now of Nkunku and Jackson, for me, Jackson leads it because he gives all the other facets. Like, he works so hard off the ball. He's a good, he links up play well. He's a good dribbler. He makes good movements. Now, I'm not saying that Nkunku doesn't do some of the things that I've just mentioned, but that work rate is so important for Maresca. The way Jackson presses, we've literally made opposition cough up the ball in their half, in their third. And then we've gone in and created chaos and scored goals. Where do you stand in this conversation of Nkunku and Jackson, where Nkunku is clearly the better finisher? He can score goals. There's no doubts about that. Jackson, probably not the most clinical finisher. He's not ruthless enough. But then Nkunku probably isn't the best presser, the best work rate of a player. Like, the balance, once again, is not balancing.
Yeah, and I'll say these thoughts, and then I'll have to scoot off. But this is an interesting debate, right? Because it's a little bit like the same as the it's a bit the same as the winger issue, right? Which is that if you could combine Nkunku and Jackson in one player, then you've got one hell of a player. Like, the thing is that, again, only through understanding like the Maresca system will you then understand which players should or are better suited, or what they need to do, and facets of their game need to improve to merit a start. So, when we talk about strikers, traditional strikers, and I don't know if you can necessarily even say Nkunku is a traditional striker, but in terms of finishing, this is no debate, right? Like, Nkunku is the best, I would say, the best finisher at the club. Actually, probably Palmer's the best finisher at the club. I would say Nkunku is not far behind, right? Having said that, I think Jackson showed significant improvements in his finishing. But where Nkunku lacks significantly is in his ability to be a pressing forward and to cut off passing lanes.
Correct.
And I think that's what Jackson does. So pressing is one thing.
Yeah, cutting off the passing
lanes is another thing altogether, right? It's very easy to press, run after the ball, be like, the Gallagher, right? Like, that's one thing. But having that intelligence is a totally different thing. And
because that literally stops the opposition to build up.
He did that. Jackson did that phenomenally against Liverpool.
Yeah.
It was like they couldn't get the ball into Gravenberch. And And Van Dijk, the only unfortunate thing about that game is Van Dijk's long range passing is phenomenal, right? But in most other situations where you're not met with defenders that have that kind of long range passing, it's impossible for the team to build up the opposition. We saw that. We saw that in at Brighton especially, right? Like Lewis Dunk, who generally is got freedom, right, to build up from the. He's got a good range of passing. Long range pass, not great, and so that can only come from that kind of intelligence to know where to be. And Palmer and Jackson do that really well. Palmer instinctively does it well. If you remember that game against Fulham, when Brozier scored, Palmer instinctively knows how to do that, right?
Yeah. How many times have we seen him still intercept the ball? Right. He's just subtly moves in stealth-like, and he just intercepts the ball.
And that's why, by the way, Felix will never displace Palmer, even if Felix gets 100 assists, right?
Because he just doesn't have that. Felix just doesn't have that.
He doesn't have that, right?
Yeah.
So, the same with Nkunku, right? Like, even if he scores, 50 goals in the Conference League, it's just not clear that he's got that intelligence.
They just they can't sniff out a pass from the opposition. They just can't sniff that out.
Now, the unfortunate thing here in terms of the striking situation is, and the more I watch these Maresca games, the more kind of I begin to understand what each of these roles are and what's needed of them. It makes the striker situation a little bit more booky, because it's like Gyökeres is a phenomenal striker, as we've now come to see.
Yeah.
But does he have that element of his game to him? I don't know. That's a gamble, right? If you were to go for him. Osimhen, does he have that element to his game to him? It's not clear to me, and it's almost kind of like we kind of go back to the first part of the discussion, which is the wingers, right? Like, honestly, because it's very hard to find a striker with that kind of defensive intelligence and be able to also score goals, which adds the burden of goal scoring to other parts of the pitch. So for me, it's kind of like Jackson is very integral to stop teams from playing that first phase, because if you have Nkunku, they're playing through us.
They're probably devastating our midfield. They're playing through us, and then they're opening up our midfield, and then it's
and then you've got things kind of adding up, right? So the more that the defenders are getting through the first phase, the more Lavia has to run and make tackles, the more likely he's going to get injury prone.
Yeah.
Right.
Correct.
The more likely you're going to have, Enzo Fernandez. If you want to play him, if you want him to be the one that breaks up play, good luck. Right. So now you've only got, so it's integral to that part of the system, and until we find a complete pressing forward that can cut lanes off and score goals, I think that we're going to have to stay with Jackson. And I think that what Maresca is saying is, I think I can train and level up the wingers to make up for the shortfall of finishing from Jackson. And then we've got a complete system that as a whole gets you the goals, gets you the wins, and has, a proper defensive system that doesn't allow teams to play out of first base. You're not going to get that with Nkunku. I don't think that's something. I don't think you can coach that into Nkunku. I genuinely don't think. It's unfortunate, because I really
it's too late as well. And Nkunku's older. It's too late, I'd say.
It's too late. And look, he is frustrated, and he's probably going to move in the summer. You can clearly see he's not happy. What's interesting to me was that Bournemouth celebration, right? The Bournemouth celebration was kind of like, you know, I'm the guy. Why am I not playing? Like he even smacked like the microphone like in the sidelines. Like it was an angry celebration, right? It was like, why am I not playing? Right?
Yeah.
Why am I only being brought on in the 65th or 70th minute?
Yeah.
You know, celebrations are not as like you know as happy as before. You can clearly see he's frustrated by it. But you know, as Maresca says, you know, you don't buy, you don't play. You know, it's as simple
One
as
thing
that.
that I want to ask you before I let you go, I know you got to go. This commentee from Elist, that person who said Jackson has a higher ceiling than Nkunku, never watched him at Leipzig. People talk a lot about the Leipzig and Nkunku. I feel like saying, have a look at the games over there, the way how open Bundesliga is, and have a look at some of the goals that Nkunku has scored. I'm not taking anything away from Nkunku, and I think Alhambra over here is not taking anything away from Nkunku either. What we're trying to say is that the games are different in the Premier League. It's not like in Bundesliga where Leipzig just had a plethora of space and Nkunku just run
Yeah,
ragged and wild.
yeah,
Here,
yeah,
opposition set up in a very structural manner where you're going to have to break them down. And on top of that, when they want to build up, you have to close down their passing lanes or else they'll run amok. And defense starts from the top. If that top guy is not
yeah.
defending, then we're open.
Yeah, this isn't a debate about like ceiling, right? Because I think we all, I mean, I've said right, Nkunku is a much better finisher um than
Jackson.
Jackson. He's
Yeah.
devastating, you know, when you get the ball into the box. As I said, I would love to have like Nkunku's kind of finishing and instinct as either a second striker with Jackson's kind of off the ball, um, not off the ball in terms of you know runs, but rather you know off the ball defensively, kind of like that level. If you could
Yeah.
combine those two, you've got a perfect player for the system. And I think
Correct.
this is where the discussion's got to develop to, not who is the better player, right? In terms of better player, Nkunku is a better player, right? Like in vacuum than Jackson. I think that's clear. I don't think anyone will argue that.
No
Or if
one's
anyone
arguing
does
that.
argue
Yeah.
with that, they have a difficult time making their point, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of who's the better suited for the system,
Correct.
that is a different discussion, right? And we've
Correct.
seen with Pep, he's made players, he's pulled the wool over eyes of various clubs down the years by making them look much better than they actually
Correct.
are, right? Because of the way that he's identified them as being good players for a system, right? You know, and so this is the discussion, really, right? So it's kind of like Nkunku's got to work on that. I think it's very difficult for him at his age, and even probably even the way that he thinks about himself as a player to work on that. I don't think that he probably even wants to, or you know, is necessarily like thinking about working on that because I don't see any development in that role at all. You know, we saw that even when he came on at against Liverpool. You know, he gave us kind of like the good and the bad. The good being
Yeah.
the runs
Yeah.
into the box and the danger that he provided. The bad being that the ball got to Diaz a lot more when
There you
Nkunku
go.
came
There
on.
you go. When Jackson
You
was
know,
there, the ball wasn't going to Diaz a lot more.
no, and I don't know if people put two and two together, right? Like
Very few would. Very few would.
you know, so it's that element. It's like if you want basketball games, play Nkunku.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
you'll
how it
get
was in
goals from him.
Bundesliga. That's how it is
Yeah.
in Bundesliga.
So it's you know so this is probably where like if we're gonna commit to Maresca and we're gonna have this style of play, then I think that it's only fair that we start to think about these positions in the way that Maresca is thinking about them.
Correct.
And as long as it's giving results, I don't disagree with the way he plays. And in fact, actually, I would say this is the most important way for us to concede fewer goals, stop the teams playing out from the back. And let's be honest, every team from top to bottom is playing out from the back. Ipswich, Southampton, Wolves,
Everyone, but
everyone.
Bolton in League Two plays out from the back.
Right, they're all playing first place play. Like How many teams playing it long these days? I don't see any teams in the Premier League playing it long.
Very few.
None. Not even teams that you might think might play like Brentford, playing from the back.
Brentford play football, man. Right? Brentford play football.
So when you're thinking about now, the role of a striker now is, very much changed. From that of even like 5 years ago, right, where you had a few teams, should I say, that didn't subscribe to that. You got teams in League Two spitting the defense, playing out with the goalkeeper, nonsense. But the fact is, they're doing it. So you got to have a striker that understands how do you counteract that. So for the time being, it's got to be Jackson.
You're right, man. You're right. Alhambra, thank you so much for your time, my brother. It's always a pleasure talking to you. We're going to continue on, and I'm sure we'll see you very, very soon on the channel again. Take care, my man. Have a very, very good evening. All right.
Big up, Miz. Big up the chat.
Take it. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to continue on with this conversation. I agree, man. Like, the striker position has changed. How often do we see now those burly, strong, tall strikers that just stay only up front and then everyone just lumps it for? Even those type of strikers these days, they're very nimble. Like, look at, for example, someone like Erling Haaland. Erling Haaland's a monster, but he works hard. Erling Haaland off the ball works very, very hard. He sometimes, he'll drop in to collect the ball, and he's always occupying the players, the defenders up front. He's making some good runs in between the lines. He's pressing off the ball. He's pressing the opposition. How many times have we seen Erling Haaland, because of his press, create major, major issues for the opposition? It's very important, man. Like, this is where I feel Nicholas Jackson ends up pipping Nkunku. A lot of people, they have a bit of an issue about this. How can you say Jackson? How can you say Jackson be starting against Nkunku? You must not be watching football. A lot of people say this, but you're probably not understanding what Enzo Maresca needs and wants from this system. It's a system. Off the ball, on the ball. There's a particular system he's trying to implement and impose and create an identity for us. And if you're not able to carry that system out, then I'm sorry, you're not going to be, you're not going to be able to start. Nkunku, there's a reason why he's a Conference League player at the moment, because in Europe, it's not the same as the Premier League. There's a little bit more space, a little bit more time to make a decision. Now, not saying that Nkunku is a bad player, as Alhambra said as well. None of us are saying Nkunku is a bad player. He's just not that player, in my opinion, to completely carry out what Maresca wants. So, let me know your thoughts before we move on to Madueke versus Neto. I want to see what you guys have to say in the live chat about this debate between Nkunku and Jackson. Shubra, big up to you, my man. Even at Bundesliga, Nkunku was never an out-and-out striker. He mostly played with Paulsen, Silva, who were the striker. Exactly. And that's the other thing. Maybe Nkunku, he can play off a striker. Maybe he can play along with Nicholas Jackson. Nicholas Jackson up front and Nkunku just be in behind. But then again, you've got Cole Palmer, so you can't fit them all. Or maybe once we have an out-and-out striker, a top-notch out-and-out striker in the likes of, I don't know whether it's Gyökeres or Osimhen, or even like John Duran. Like, I'm very impressed with John Duran in recent times. Omoro Dion, another goal over the Champions, Europa League matches yesterday. Maybe Nkunku could play often, but then you have someone like Cole Palmer, which makes it very difficult for Nkunku to have a start. Roby, big up to you, my man. Miz, as a striker, intimidation is a big factor. Jackson has not refined his game enough yet to intimidate really good defenses. Hey, look, this is why I'm also not convinced with Jackson. This is why I say, and this is why some people get annoyed with me, that, why are we having this conversation about Nicholas Jackson? This is so unnecessary. People need to talk from a broader perspective. Nkunku has his flaws in this system. Jackson brings a lot in within this system, but he also has flaws where, he's not really an out-and-out striker that's going to intimidate the opposition defense. He's not a ruthless or a clinical finisher. So there is lacking. Yes, and Jackson might be pressing well, blocking the passing lines, but brother, when it comes to scoring, need you to score more often. Now, a lot of people say, but he has been scoring, Miz. What are you talking about? I'm talking about meaningful goals that's going to actually allow us to compete for the Premier League next season. So, big matches against Liverpool. Thank you for scoring a goal, but we lost the match. Now, I'm not blaming Jackson for our loss. No, I'm not doing that. But what I'm saying is, we need a striker that's going to be able to grab the game by the scruff of the neck and win the match for us, like your Didier Drogba's, like your Diego Costa's. Like, that is the level that is needed, and that's what I'm trying to get to. And Nkunku is not good as a target man, but he can perform as second striker. He don't have physique like Jackson on the ball. Nehemiah is saying, Miz, I think Nkunku should start ahead of Gusto left back. Maybe Gusto should hold bench and Mudryk should start ahead of Sancho. Misha like scoring against Newcastle. Hopefully history repeats itself. Fair enough. Sam saying this is a non-debate unless Palmer stinks the place up and Nkunku will stay as a striker. Yeah, look, that's the thing. And Nkunku is not going to play as a number 10, especially in the Premier League where Cole Palmer will definitely play as a number 10 and Nkunku will either have to play as a left wing or a striker, most likely a striker. And I'm not fully convinced of him as a striker because, yes, you might be a very good finisher, but you also have to be working equally hard to press and block off the passing lanes, which I think Nkunku probably struggles a bit. Except Palmer, I think everyone is lacking in some aspect and can be replaced by someone in the club or be moved on. And I like this environment, no one getting too comfortable. Absolutely agreed. All right, let's talk about Madueke versus Neto, ladies and gentlemen. This is another one of those debates, as some of you guys said, not as Abik just said, no one is safe at the moment besides Cole Palmer. Madueke versus Neto. I like what Neto is giving us. I really do. But the problem with Neto is the fact that he's played 65 minutes odd or something like that against Panathinaikos. Is he capable of then now playing in the weekend against Newcastle? That is the bit of a problem. Madueke, I like him. Just like Jackson. I like both Madueke and Jackson. There are flaws. There are definite flaws. But Madueke is someone who does similar things like Neto in terms of off-the-ball work rate, very good 1v1. But the thing that really pips Neto ahead of Madueke is the final third execution. That's where Madueke lacks on a day-to-day basis, basically on a match-to-match basis. Madueke might have that one. He might take like 6-7 opportunities to deliver that one really good cross or have that one really good moment in front of goal where he ends up scoring. Whereas Neto, he needs less amount of chances to do that. Like Neto, 1 in every 2 crosses will be a devastating cross. 1 in every 2 shot will be a devastating shot. I'm just throwing up, the basic sort of example. I'm not really stating that these are legitimate stats, but I feel like Neto's execution is far more regular than someone like Madueke. But both in terms of work rate are probably similar. But I feel, Neto just makes better decisions in clutch moments. The real Kevin K, hey, Miz, unless I'm missing something, I'm not sure where this large clamor for Mudryk to start is coming from. He's done nothing special or barely even played. Sancho is doing much better for me. Look, Sancho is doing better. I don't think we can just sit here anymore and just say, look, Mudryk is not doing anything special. Mudryk had a really good assist opportunity against Nottingham Forest where we should have won for Nkunku to score that header. He scored a good goal in the international break. He's done really well against Panathinaikos. Look, I want to see consistency as well, but I don't think we can sit here anymore and say, oh, he's not doing anything. He's doing something in recent times. Is it enough? Maybe not, and that's a debate. But yeah, we all want to see consistency. But similarly with Sancho needs to improve as well. Sancho's done fairly good, no doubts about that, since he's come in our football club. But he also needs to improve. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, let me know your thoughts between Madueke and Neto in the comment section right now. Faisal, big up to you, my man. Where have all these Mudryk fans spawned from? He's been crap for 2 years, and fans want to start him for what? He started games at the start of the season and did nothing. We need to sell him. Well, that's look, I still think as well, like maybe unless he shows far more consistency, he probably needs to move on as well. So I understand what you're saying, Faisal. January next summer, yeah, maybe he might be moved on. Daniel G, next summer, I think Mudryk, Noni, and Nkunku will all be sold. We need to make room for the wingers for Estevar, who is an absolute starter and will be a superstar player. And I think this is what Alhambra has said that earlier when he was on the stream, that eventually enough, some of these wingers will be moved on. If they're not giving exactly what Maresca needs, they will be moved on. And that's the bottom line, honestly. So, yeah, Mudryk, Noni, and Nkunku, there's big question marks on all of them. We can't just be sitting here and keeping players that are not going to be completely viable for Maresca's style. I think Noni is more secured in any isolated positions than Neto, which helps us to hold the possession. Maresca likes that, in my opinion. I mean, is there a conversation for perhaps both Madueke and Noni to start? Maybe Madueke on the right side and Neto on that left side. I mean, can they both sort of play? For me, at the moment, if we look at all our wingers, Neto is probably the most complete out of them all in terms of Maresca's system and what Maresca wants. After that, I'd probably say Madueke in terms of what Maresca wants. Sancho is technically superb, don't get me wrong. But I think Sancho lacks that complete package that Maresca needs in his system. So is there a conversation? Maybe both of them plays. I don't know. Let's see what you guys have to say. A few people are saying Nottingham Forest are 2-1 up against Leicester. That's another game that's going on. Nottingham Forest doing madness, man. Nottingham Forest, they're doing well. So, yeah, let's see what you guys are saying. If Mudryk have consistency, I have no problem. Start him. We know now he's training, slowly growing. Let's not push to a big event yet. Estevar still has a long way to come. Yeah. We need to sell Mudryk. He can't play in the Premier League. I wouldn't mind that. There you go. Shubra wouldn't mind both Madueke and Pedro Neto to start together. Martin Liz, have you seen the reports of Kendry Pires stalling on his development? He has been playing poor, looks a bit fatter, and issues off the pitch. Estevar has a much higher ceiling. We should loan Pires. Well, look, yes, I have seen some reports, and I've seen that lately he's not been playing well as well. So, yeah, this is why I keep saying we have to be so careful about some of these 16, 17, 18-year-olds, because life is ahead of them, man. There's so much that needs to be accomplished. We can't just be... So let's hope that it all turns around for Pires. But yes, it is a concern that things are stalling. But at the same time, I'm pretty sure that things will come around. Like, he is young. Hopefully things will come around. We have to be careful about these young kids. We really do, because unless and until they hit the age of 23, 24, yeah, it's very difficult to say where their life is heading, because they're kids, and anything is possible. For me, Estevar is not an automatic starter. Once he gets hit next season, he'll come off the bench and maybe start in the cup games. Vinny didn't automatically start at Real. Yeah, look, there needs to be a development plan. Whatever the case is, there has to be a plan. We cannot be screwing around with Estevar. Estevar is a proper talent. We need to make sure that we take care of Estevar, William. And then, yes, he has to work hard as well, no doubts. No, 7th, WTF, man. We need to beat Newcastle. No chance. This is what I'm saying, man. I'm telling you, things in the Premier League can get very sticky very quickly. You don't win games. We didn't win the game against Nottingham Forest. We lost against Liverpool. You drop points against Newcastle. Yeah, you best believe you're going to be amongst those 8th, 9th, and 10th, teams and having the conversations with them. This is how ruthless the Premier. People are like, oh, miss, but you're okay, but for coming 5th and 6th, like you said, your expectations 5th or 6th, and then we kick on from there. So what are you worried about if we don't win? Look, even to come 5th or 6th, you're going to have to win games. The 5th or 6th is not easy in the Premier League. You got to win games to be 5th or 6th as well. Lose often enough, drop points often enough, yeah, you're gonna go down that table quicker than you can even imagine. Junior, all of you are hyping up Estevao and Kendrick Pires. I'm placing my bet on Santos. If he gets a chance in the team, I can see him doing. Yeah, look, Santos, he needs to be in the conversation next season in the midfield. He's doing too much good for not to be in that conversation. Robbie, people have to accept that Neto is a transitional player. Noni is a shooting winger, but his decision-making is inconsistent. My hope is Estevao coming good. Yeah, look, Neto definitely is a transitional player, but I think Neto is technically good as well. I think he can be good against low blocks because he's got good combination play. We saw against Panathinaikos yesterday. He put in a pass for Dewsbury Hall. Dewsbury Hall then threaded the pass back to him, and then Neto got in and put in that cross. Neto's a smart player. I don't think Neto is just someone who's only good with space. He's not a Mudryk type where he needs a lot of space. Neto can combine in tight areas to get into space, basically. That's what I like about Neto. Nottingham Forest fan, big up to you. Our next 3 games are West Ham, Newcastle, Arsenal. Wow. Hopefully you guys can take points, especially against Arsenal and Newcastle. Take some points away from them too. Soon, big up to you. Thank you so much for the super chat. Neto is poor one-on-one, which is integral to... Really? Neto poor one-on-one? I know he wasn't great against that Greek left back yesterday, but I don't think Neto is poor one-on-one. I think Neto is very, very good. Look, Madueke probably is slightly better 1v1, but Neto's dribbling is good, man. Let's not just only think about what happened with Panathinaikos. Neto overall is very, very good. Neto's overall package, combination play, pace, power, physicality, and his better final third execution is I think, far more superior to Madueke. Taking nothing away from Madueke, I think Madueke has a lot in his game as well. But it's that final third execution that really lets him down. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap things up. Thank you so much for everyone that's tuned in. We're going to try and make these streams more regular, like before, how we used to stream a lot. So we're going to try and make it as regular as possible. And do look out for another video within the next 1 hour or so, 1.5 hours, by 10:30 UK time, wrapping up the latest Chelsea news. So do look out for that. That will drop within the next 1.5 hours, all the news that has dropped in the last 24 hours. And for anyone that has just joined in now, do check out from the start of this stream, really fine conversation with Alhambra. So smash up the like button, guys, before you go. And if you're here for the first time, subscribe, hit the bell notification to stay in touch with all my content. I shall see you guys for yet another live stream tomorrow, early UK time, tonight for me. And look out for the news video that will drop within the next 1.5 hours. Until next time, take care. See ya. Bye.